I'm Jeff Cornwall, and this is the Entrepreneurial Mind. Today my guest is Gehrke with Nashville Rowing. We'll be back to talk with him after this.
Talkapolis programming is sponsored in part by the Vane Center, now celebrating 10 years service in Nashville, Tennessee.
Eric, welcome.
Thank you.
Glad to have you here. So, so you started a rowing, is it rowing school? Is it a rowing club program?
Yeah.
All right. So, kind of how does that happen here in Nashville? I haven't seen a lot of sculls going up and down.
No, I mean
the Cumberland.
The Cumberland, it's going to be a while, but the story kind of starts, 700 miles away. I'm from Washington, D.C. And
where rowing is big.
Where rowing is huge, and I grew up there. I learned to row on the Potomac, and it is inundated with scholastic programs.
Right.
There's probably over 50 scholastic programs in the D.C. area, and as I returned there to teach and coach after college, and my rowing was over, I came to the conclusion it was quite watered down, and it wasn't.
No pun intended?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pun maybe intended.
All right.
And it was kind of a disservice to the athletes to have that many programs and water down the coaching staffs. There's really not that enough people who've rowed at this point who can fulfill 50 coaching staff's needs. And you saw that some athletes that could be very capable or would be very capable were in programs that struggled. So the concept I came up with was finding a location, a city, a region that had no rowing.
Well, you couldn't have picked a better one than Nashville on that one.
Yeah.
So that you came to Nashville intentionally to set up
absolutely
Nashville Rowing.
I got in my Civic with my dog on August 1st, 2013, and had our first interest meeting on the 11th. And with all I had at my disposal was a listserv from the YMCA, and
so
we built it out of that.
So what? Let's back up just a little bit. What was the research you did, and how did you pick Nashville? What were the criteria that you used to hone in on Nashville?
A large part of the criteria was where my wife wanted to move.
Okay, all right.
But no, I had to cross-reference really cities she would have been interested in relocating to and getting a job in with what could have a good environment where we could flourish as a rowing program.
And so what did you look for in that criteria?
I kind of went to where there were young cities, what were the fastest growing cities in the United States, what were the waterways like. I did a lot of kind of researching on the Cumberland, the lakes that surround the Cumberland, the Harpeth, and narrowed our list down to about 5 regions that lacked youth rowing, but had the groundwork that we could grow it out of. And Nashville at the time was, a top 3 growing city in the country, and the real estate market was starting to lift again, and it's a really young city,
right?
Which exposed itself to the need for this sport. There wasn't really an established youth rowing system in the city. No one really even knew what it was. Everyone asked if it's kayaking.
Yeah. And so that's a tough startup, is when you come into a market where nobody knows what you're talking about.
Exactly. Or if you could look at it on the other side of the coin and say, no one has any bad habits yet, so we could.
Okay, but you still had to drum up interest in this.
Yes.
So how did you get people to know about it and get interested and get excited and say, I'm going to send my kid to row instead of play soccer or swim or
certainly
whatever?
And particularly here where there are some very ingrained sports that are already in the system, and the numbers kind of speak for themselves. All I really did was expose families, communities to the fact that rowing has the highest scholarship rate
But how? I mean, how did you get them to come, even to listen to you and talk to you? Because I think this is, I know you view yourself as a coach and a teacher, but I mean, this is a really good lesson for people trying to start any kind of a business up like this. Is how do you get that market's attention? How do you let them know you're here and get them to hear this message?
I reached out. I beat my feet a lot. got the word out through the YMCA, schools. I reached out to athletic directors, homeschool communities, churches, camps. I really tried to use as much of my knowledge of the educational system as I could to get in with families,
right,
and youth systems and things that were already in place that maybe would have had an open mind to a new sport. The one that comes to mind off the top of my head is the homeschool community was immediately very open,
right,
to trying this. And some of the hardest schools to get into and to speak to the kids were the public school systems.
Right.
So.
Right. But you are working with the private schools. I know at least one that
yeah.
My daughter has something to do with. So
yeah, we have kids from 20 different schools now in the homeschool community. So we've expanded quickly and quite rapidly into lots of different homes, and it's been groundswell after that. Once we were able to get a single athlete at any school, then all they did was share their positive experience and drew in other athletes and siblings. If a coach or an athletic director had a positive experience, then it helped us garner interest when they would get up and speak in front of their student body or their administration. So to answer your question initially, it was just a lot of getting out there and meeting people and
right,
showing them why they can trust their kids with our program.
Right. So a lot of selling.
Yes.
A lot of selling.
Tons of selling.
Yeah. Were you prepared for that, or did you have to learn how to do that?
I was prepared to a certain point. I had to learn, coming from Washington, D.C., I certainly had to learn the way, Southern speed works and the way
right,
people around here interact and trust and what a handshake means. And it was all great. I mean, we've had the most positive experience since coming to Nashville, 18, 19 months ago. And it has just, every season has grown almost exponentially.
So is this a full-time endeavor for you at this point?
Yes.
Wow. And you have staff now too, or is it just you?
Yes, there's two of us that are, employees, and then another 3 coaches that are 1099 contractors. So
wow,
we've had to grow. I mean, in our first season, our first fall, we had 18 kids, and now we have 69 kids in the program, and 110 have gone through at some point and done this. So we've needed, and part of our ethos was keeping our coach to athlete ratio very low, like a classroom,
right,
like teaching. And to make that happen, I had to go out and get coaches,
right,
which was a...
Coaches who know rowing, or did you have to teach some of them how to row?
No, I mean, I've been fortunate to be able to bring in people that knew what they were doing.
It's a big enough city where you can find some of those people.
Certainly, and the other employee I brought to town.
Gotcha.
I dragged him down here and moved him here. But I had a good mentor tell me once, you don't need to be the smartest man in the room. You just got to surround yourself with the smartest people in the
right,
room. And I've been lucky to have the staff that we've had so far, which has made the kids' experience that much better, which has then turned around and grown the program.
Well, obviously you've done a lot of things right, because that's incredible success in a short time. So congratulations.
Thank you.
Appreciate you coming in today.
Oh, thank you very much.